weekly video where I discuss a theological or biblical topic. Today I want to address a topic that's been very controversial for some time now, and that has to do with whether or not a Christian should or could attend the wedding of a relative who is getting married to someone of the same gender. So, is it okay or acceptable or not acceptable to attend a gay wedding of a family member, I guess by extension of a friend, but normally it comes in the context of a family member. Now, about a year ago, on his radio broadcast, a pastor named Alistair Begg, who is quite famous across the United States, has written quite a bit, speaks a lot at conferences and things, is a leading voice for evangelical beliefs and practices in the United States. He's the pastor at Parkside Church in Cleveland, Ohio. And on his radio show, Truth for Life, he was asked this question. And so instead of trying to put words in his mouth or summarize, I'm just going to give you a clip and let us see what he said, and then we'll discuss the issue from there.
And in very specific areas this comes across. I mean, you and I know that we field questions all the time that go along the lines of, my grandson is about to be married to a transgender person, and I don't know what to do about this, and I'm calling to ask you to tell me what to do, which is a huge responsibility. And in a conversation like that just a few days ago, and people may not like this answer, but I asked the grandmother, does your grandson understand your belief in Jesus? Yes. Does your grandson understand that your belief in Jesus makes it such that you can't countenance in any affirming way the choices that he has made in life? Yes. I said, well then, okay, as long as he knows that, then I suggest that you do go to the ceremony, and I suggest that you buy them a gift. Oh, she said, what? She was caught off guard. I said, well, here's the thing. You're not going to, your love for them may catch them off guard, but your absence will simply reinforce the fact that they said these people are what I always thought, judgmental, critical, unprepared to countenance anything. And it is a fine line, isn't it? It really is. And people need to work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. But I think we're going to take that risk. We're going to have to take that risk a lot more if we want to build bridges into the hearts and lives of those who don't understand Jesus and don't understand that he is a king.
So because he is very popular and because he is a conservative evangelical, this interview really caused a firestorm. YouTubers and bloggers were having a field day, either coming out in support of or in opposition to Alistair's position. And so I didn't want to address the topic at that time because in some ways it becomes sort of sensationalist to do that type of thing, and I really didn't want to be sensational. I just wanted to give some time to think and reflect on it myself. I have been in the same situation where people have asked me, I have a relative who is getting married and it's a gay wedding. What should I do? So I want to address the subject today, now that most of the brouhaha has settled down, and give a little more reflection. I am aware that this is a very, very sensitive topic for those who are directly involved in these situations, and it's a hot topic because Christians sometimes have pretty strong feelings about this sort of thing. And so I want to cover some things that are obvious, and then I want to talk about really the underlying root question to this question of, can I attend the wedding of a gay relative? So we know that the Bible, of course, defines marriage as between a man and a woman. This was laid down in Genesis when God said a man will leave his father and mother and cling unto his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Nowhere in the Bible is marriage ever portrayed as anything other than one man and one woman. So because that is the biblical model, anything that deviates from that deviates from God's plan. So that would not include only gay marriage, but it would include polygamy. It would include living together rather than being married. It would include really any kind of deviation from that. And so this is not a question of are gay marriages acceptable? No, they're not before God at all. So that part's very easy and very clear. If a church was asked to host a gay wedding, the answer would obviously be no, at least if it's a Bible-believing church. That one is clear as well, that we're not going to do that. Her church is not going to do that, and we're not going to host it. And certainly, if a pastor was asked to do that type of ceremony, he would refuse as well. So the reason that this is a hot topic about do I attend the wedding of a gay relative is not just because of Alistair Begg's interview. That was kind of the match that lit the whole thing. But as he noted, this is becoming more prominent as gay marriage not only is legalized now in the United States, but is actually becoming popular and becoming more accepted to the general population. And unfortunately, even in some churches, it is one that we're going to have to deal with and wrestle with more and more as Christians who believe the Bible and want to stand on the truth of Scripture. But the reality is this is not a question of, can I attend a gay wedding? This really is a question of, what is a wedding? I mean, fundamentally, that is the question. It's not even what is marriage. The real question is, what is a wedding? And the reason I say that is because this is where most of the disagreement with Alistair Begg comes from. There are a number who have argued that a Christian should not attend that kind of wedding because to attend is to participate, and weddings are a holy worship event. So if a wedding is a holy worship event, then no, a Christian should not attend. That would be kind of obvious and make sense. But the reality is there's nothing in Scripture that says a wedding is a holy event. There's nothing that says it's a worship event. The Bible lays down marriage before the fall. So marriage or wedding, I mean, all of that really is a human institution, not a Christian institution. Meaning you can get married, you can have a wedding and be legally married with no connection to God or the church or anything, because it is a human institution. Now, I would argue that because it's a human institution, there are oftentimes deviations from God's order and God's plan. But the reality is, weddings are, in my opinion, not a holy event. They are not a worship event. They are the legal binding of two individuals under the authority of the state, to put it pretty simply. Now, with that said, I believe a Christian wedding should be a holy event and should be a worship event, because we recognize that in a Christian wedding, we're not just involving two human beings. We are also involving God, who believe has brought them together, and that this wedding represents God's plan for their individual lives and the beginning of their lives together as they build a home and build a family. So I believe that a Christian marriage should be a holy worship event. But by the same token, people getting together and hanging out and having fellowship, watching a football game or whatever, is not a holy worship event, but for believers it is. So wait a minute, do we got to have a worship service? No, we don't have a worship service. But when believers fellowship together, our commonality, what binds us mostly, fundamentally, foundationally, is our relationship with Jesus. And we're wanting to hang out with people who share a common worldview about what is most important in life and the person who has saved us and our lives are devoted to Him. So at a fellowship, our conduct reflects our relationship with Jesus, because in life, everything reflects our relationship with Jesus. So that's kind of fundamentally where I'm at. So because I don't see a wedding as being a Christian institution, because it's not biblical. It's a human institution that was given to human beings before the fall and continues even after the fall. And in the Bible, violations like multiple wives, polygamy, they're still called wives. They're not given a different designation. Now, I realize they had a second class of wife called a concubine, but David has multiple wives. Solomon has 700 wives, not one wife and 699 that are not recognized by God kind of thing. No, they're just called wives. That's just how it is. I realize they were politically arranged, but they violate God's plan and order, but they're still recognized as wives. I mean, it's just the way that it is. And so, because it's a human institution, it is unfortunately oftentimes corrupted. That's why we don't say a wedding, we say a Christian wedding. And there are different expectations at a Christian wedding because we realize the centrality of Jesus in that. Furthermore, if you're going to say no, a Christian cannot attend the wedding of a family member who is marrying someone of the same gender because it violates the biblical plan for marriage, that means that you cannot attend the wedding of a family member if they're a believer and their spouse is an unbeliever, or the other way around, because the Bible is very clear that believers and unbelievers are not supposed to marry each other. You cannot attend a wedding if they've been living together before they got married, because you would be approving of a lifestyle leading to marriage that violates Scripture. So I think, when you start down that road, at some point you may end up never going to anybody's weddings. And so I think this really, in the end, comes down to two things. And this is where I stand on this issue. And I'm not going to get up on a table and scream and holler and argue with people about this. Matter of fact, you don't really need to leave a bunch of comments because I'm not going to respond to them and get into a tit for tat on online. But I do want to say there are a few things we need to consider. The admonition in 1 Corinthians that if someone is putting you to the test, then we have to say no. If they're not putting us to the test, then we just roll with it, for lack of a better description. He's talking about meat that's offered to an idol. If someone says, hey, this meat was offered to an idol, are you going to eat it? If they're testing you, then you would say, no, I'll refrain because it's been offered to an idol. So if someone says, a family member says, I'm marrying another man. What do you think about that? Are you going to show up for the wedding? Like if they're putting you to the test, then you would have to say, obviously, this is important to you, but also testing my resolve and my Christian commitments is something that you're wanting to do through this. So I'm sorry, I will have to decline the invitation because my commitment to Jesus is the highest one that I have. If you just get a wedding invitation and they're not putting you to the test, they know where you stand, they know you don't approve of this. Personally, I think it's okay to attend the wedding. However, and this is the second thing that you'll hear from a lot of people, attending a wedding is participating. With that, I disagree. The participants are the bridegrooms, the bridesmaids, the person doing the wedding, obviously the two people getting married, anybody that serves as usher, all but people that just show up and attend a wedding are not participating, they're observing. Because by that logic, you're participating in a football game if you show up, so you cannot attend a football game because there are people that are getting drunk. There's all kinds of profanity going on. So you say, I can't do that because there are things at a football event that I disagree with, and I don't want to participate in that. You can't do that with everything. But again, this goes back to what is a wedding? And I don't believe that weddings are Christian institutions. I believe that they are human institutions. And so that's why as Christians, we conduct this human ceremony in a particular form and fashion and do include elements of worship and do want to make it a holy attitude or a holy event. So again, if you have a relative who says, I would like for you to be at my wedding, and they're not making a test of it, they're not trying to push buttons, I think it's okay to attend. I do not believe that it's okay to participate. When you participate, you are approving, which means that you would not participate in the wedding, say, of a grandchild, as in the case of Alistair Begg, who is a believer and they're marrying a non-believer. You can attend, but say, I'm just not comfortable participating because I feel like that would give my approval. So you don't sing at the wedding, you don't give the bride away, or any of that sort of thing. So again, I realize that this is a hot topic. I know there are a lot of varying opinions, and other people who somewhat feel strongly about this, but also that some of you have been, are in, or will be in this situation. I believe that handling it with grace, but also conviction, is the way to go. And so if your family member is testing you, trying to make a point out of this, then you can just very simply say, because you're trying to make a test of my Christian commitment, I will not be able to attend the wedding. If they just ask you, you get an invitation, okay. I don't know about bringing the toaster thing. I'm not sure if Alistair Begg was just trying to be funny and a little sarcastic, so I'm going to let that one go. But I do think it's okay to attend, but I don't believe it's okay to participate, because participation indicates approval. But I don't believe that attending means participation. We attend things all the time that we don't participate in. And so that's kind of what I think the way that we would handle it. So let me close out with why I think this is biblical. Jesus ate in the home of sinners, but he didn't participate in their sin. Now, the Pharisees didn't like that. But Jesus spent a lot of time in the presence and even being involved with sinners. He went to Zacchaeus' house and had fellowship with him. They ate, which in the Bible is the most intimate kind of fellowship that you can have with someone beyond, obviously, your spouse. And so the fact that Jesus would eat with sinners was considered a horrible, he was defiling himself. He was approving of their lifestyle and all that sort of thing. And so I think, again, attending does not equal participation, because Jesus didn't view it that way. The scriptures do not view it that way in his lifestyle, only the legalist Pharisees. So I hope this is somewhat helpful to you, because in all likelihood, at some point, you or your children or grandchildren are going to face this situation where there's a family member and they're invited. And so knowing how to handle that, I think, is important. If it's being put to the test and thrown in my face, then yes, we have to decline. If it's simply an invitation and we want to show them that we love them, then we attend. But we also show them that we don't approve, because we don't participate in the wedding in any form or fashion. So again, I hope this is helpful on what is a very hot topic. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day.